Hello, my name's Liz Carter, and I am the director and founder of Crossbeam Communications. We are a creative agency for Christian ministries. And today we're going to be talking to you about digital marketing for mission wins. So this is me, and my colleague Ngaire is also going to be chatting with you today. So Crossbeam has existed in its current form for a little over a year, and in a different form for a few more years than that. And we started this company to serve Christian ministries, churches, not-for-profits, recognizing that the marketing and communication needs of these types of organizations are a little different to businesses and for-profit entities. So we love this space. We are Christians. We both go to Anglican churches. I'm at Macquarie Anglican in Sydney, and Ngaire's at Springwood Anglican in the Blue Mountains. And this is just something that we're really passionate about. So you can take a look at the next slide, just so you know that we know what we're talking about. Here's some of our clients that we've had the absolute privilege of working with. So you might recognize some familiar people there, some familiar organizations. So let's jump into it. Digital marketing for mission wins. What do we mean by that? How to use digital marketing for your church as part of fulfilling that great commission to make disciples of all nations. So as we've got there on the slide, marketing your church isn't about marketing your own goodness. It's not about making yourself look awesome. It's about making Jesus known in your community. So digital marketing is broad. It's a broad thing. And we thought, we've got 30 minutes. We're not going to be able to talk about everything. So let's narrow it down. So we're going to talk more specifically about social media. Now, social media is not the only digital marketing strategy that you can use to reach out and achieve your mission goals, but it is what we're going to focus on today because we think that it's one area that some churches haven't quite caught up on in the same way. Most churches these days have pretty great websites, but maybe not on social media or not using your social media as well as you could be. Social media, as opposed to other digital marketing strategies, also has a real potential for impact without any cost or very minimal cost. So it's a really effective tool. So this is our overview. We're going to talk about why, what, and how to start with. So why social media, what to do on your social media, and how to make that happen effectively. And then we're going to talk about 5 quick things you can do in the next, week or so to level up your social media. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about how Crossbeam can help you, just very briefly, if you would like some extra support. As I mentioned before, if you've got questions and we've got time at the end, we'll take some, but we do have a slightly limited time today. So if you have a question and we haven't been able to address it, please do send us an email. Our email address will be on the last slide. All right, so let's talk about why social media is important for churches. So social media is important because there is an amazing audience that is available to you on social media. So let's take a look at this Venn diagram. So this is a diagram that shows a variety of the types of communication that churches tend to use. So on one side, we've got your website, your Google listing. On the other side, you've got your church management software. So that's something like Elbanter or something similar that manages your rosters and your members and stuff like that. Maybe you've got a newsletter, print or email, and then maybe you've got some internal groups or emails, so things like a WhatsApp chat or a Facebook group for your church. And so those we kind of have separated there into external and internal audiences. Now, obviously, these are, fuzzy categories, but generally we would say that if you're looking to reach people on the outside, they're going to be like looking at your website, Googling you, whereas the people on the inside are going to be in that internal circle of the Venn diagram. But social media sits at the intersection of the two. So social media, you have the opportunity to reach an external and an internal audience at the same time. So it's a high impact digital marketing tool with opportunities there for both internal and external people. So let me talk about that a little bit more and explain why that is. So why can we talk to all these audiences at the same time, and why does that matter? Why does that make a difference for our digital marketing? So I've broken this down into 3 further categories: your people, their people, and all people. So let's talk about your people. So this is kind of your internal audience. So for your people, your members of your church who are currently coming along and involved in ministry, social media is a really fabulous tool for a number of things. Odds are many of your members will already be on social media. So it's a great way to meet them where they're at, and you can reinforce the messages that you're already sharing on your internal communications channels. So this is something that a lot of churches are already doing, using social media to post the same kinds of things that are in their newsletter. But it's also a place you can encourage your members to reflect more regularly on God's word. So you can remind them with Bible verses or excerpts from sermons. But another thing that's really important for your people on social media is that when they're able to engage with your content, so something like liking a post or commenting or sharing, they get to kind of have this sense of belonging and forgive the phrase, it's not a great one, but church pride. So feeling happy and excited and thankful to be a part of your church. They get to have that feeling when they engage on social media. But when we want to reach further, that's when the next audience comes in. So their people. So what do I mean by this? So I mean the people your current membership are connected to. The power of social media is that it's not just a publishing tool, it's a network. Now, I thought it was really interesting that the guys in the opening session were talking about how they didn't have a lot of luck with their online marketing campaign to try and get people along to their life course. And I wonder if it's because they intentionally chose not to use pre-existing connections. The power of social media is actually in using these pre-existing networking connections, and we can use this for outreach. So this means that your current members can be your advocates on social media. If a churchgoer regularly shares or even just likes or comments on posts from their church, their friends are going to see this. And that lays a really helpful foundation for conversations about church and about the gospel. So if you do your social media well, you can actually empower and equip your current members for online and offline outreach, which I think is a very cool use of social media. But of course, we can also use social media to reach all people, not just those with a pre-existing connection to members of your church. So why is that? Well, social media is actually an important part of adding credibility to your church, especially for Generation Y down, so probably around 30, 35 and younger. For this age bracket, if you're not on social, do you actually exist? Maybe not. Social media is where consumers will look to see if something is active now. So having your social media presence nice and active gives your church's vibe. Again, it's a millennial word, but we're talking about a younger audience here. You might have heard that having a church website is like having a front door of your church on the internet. And so I like to say that being present on social media is like having the lights on and the music playing inside that building. That shows that you're open for business and that you're ready to welcome visitors. Here's one more reason all people can be, or why you should keep your social media active and up to date for the sake of all people. It's something called domain authority. So basically, social media networks, especially the big ones like Facebook and Instagram, have really high domain authority, which means that if somebody Googles your church, your Facebook page, for example, will come up very high in the results because Google knows that Facebook is a site with authority. It might even rank higher than your own website in your Google results. And that means that people are going to click on that if they want to find out about your church. So we don't want them to stumble upon an empty or an out-of-date page. So there you go. Social media is powerful. This is why we think you need to be on there. With the right use of it, you can encourage your members, you can empower them to reach others, and you can reach an even broader world of people who need to hear about Jesus. But how do you do this? How do you do it well? What does good, right use of social media actually look like? It comes down to where you spend your energy and what you choose to share. So I'm going to hand over to Ngaire, and she's going to talk about this.
Fantastic. Thanks, Liz. So yeah, let's talk about what to actually focus on when it comes to the content of effective social media, because I imagine that a lot of you are already on there, perhaps have Facebook pages and are maybe sharing the occasional post. But how do you take just kind of communicating or like it may feel, throwing some random information out on the internet, and turn it into storytelling, authority building, and something that becomes an extension of inviting people into your church so they can know Jesus. Because that's really what we want to do, right? As we said at the beginning, it's not just about, hey, we're such a good church, look at us, but rather we want people to walk in the door, to listen to the teaching and to know Jesus. So let's talk about that. So firstly, I just want to talk about where you post. Just kind of briefly, it's a big thing, obviously. Social media is like this big categorical thing where we say social, but what does that really mean? Are we talking about, TikTok? Isn't that all the range? Are we talking about Be Real? Anyone else's churches and mainly youth groups gripped with Be Real at the moment? Are we talking about Twitter? What are we talking about? Well, yes, there is so many platforms for social. But when it comes to churches, the places that you should be focusing on are Facebook as your primary kind of, thing that has domain authority, like Liz talked about, place to connect with people, and most likely Instagram as your secondary place, mainly because they capture the two biggest kind of age ranges and demographics, which means you're able to find your people, their people or people, in those places, and also because they're actually easier to spend less time for good content. So if you were like, I really want to do TikTok, I'd be like, well, that's great, but you have to put a lot of time in to have a good TikTok, and you're only really going to reach Gen Z and maybe some millennials, So we're thinking about the broad spectrum of our churches. Facebook and Instagram capture all the age ranges while also being really easy and effective for you to use. So just don't really bother about everything else. Yes, there is a place for things in a broader marketing strategy, but for churches who I imagine you're feeling busy, perhaps a bit overwhelmed, you're trying to, do everything with just yourself or limited staff or burnt out volunteers, all those kinds of things. Don't complicate it, just stick with Facebook and Instagram if you want to add Instagram as well. And I will say what we're going to talk about in terms of your content will work across any platform. They're strategic principles. They're not specific to the platforms. But you can also do duplicated content between Facebook and Instagram, which makes it really easy to be on both platforms. So something for you to think about for what is right for your church. Okay, so let's talk about how to make your content effective so that people want to share it and that they see it, right? Because as Liz said, there is kind of an amazing thing where social media is a network, it's a social place, and we want people to engage with content and we want them to share it. So how do we post stuff that they care about? So content that they care about, we've broken down into kind of a 3-category framework. You want to post connect content, educate content, and illustrate content. So we're going to talk about what all those things mean, because content on social media isn't just about pushing out information. It's actually about engaging your audience with stuff that they, as I say, they care about and that they want to engage with, that they care about knowing the information about. So using this kind of a framework means that your content will fit that criteria and it's more likely to do well and to engage people. So we're just going to run through this quickly using some examples from one of our clients, one of our church clients, Providence Bayswater. So connect content is the kind of stuff that people want to share and engage, so people share and engage with things that they care about. We relate to emotion, personality. We connect with things that we have a vested interest in. You're already doing all these things in your church, right? You're caring about people on a personal level. You're trying to keep up with them. You're sharing stories, and engaging with emotion, because in churches, we're not robots, right? We're people, humans who have brokenness and need God and are grappling with a lot of things in our lives, good and bad. So your connect content works to bring some of that experience and feeling online. So here's an example of a piece of connect content from Providence Bayswater. So just in case you can't read it, I'll read a bit out for you. So obviously the image is of a great verse from the book of Isaiah, and the caption says this: "This is how glorious and tender our God is. In his mercy, he doesn't just take away our sadness, he promises a time where he will wipe away every tear from the face of his people." And it kind of goes on in that way with a bit more of an insight, and invites people to come along to church this Sunday as they continue to preach on this topic on their series, Holy, 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 in the book of Isaiah. Now, why does this connect? One, because it connects with the member, the person who's in church, who's hearing the sermon, or even if they missed it, but who knows what the series is and is engaged with that kind of content. It reminds them of what they heard on Sunday, which is a really helpful thing for us to do with our socials, because we want to continue people thinking, right? We don't want just Sunday Christians. We want followers of Jesus who are constantly being shaped by his word, and we can actually encourage them in that by just reminding them, what did we look at on Sunday? Have you looked back at your notes? Are you considering the insights you got from the sermon? This is also like quite an easy thing to share. Super easy to send it to a friend in a message. Hey, remember how we talked about this? Would you like to come along? Or a prompt for them, for them to invite their friend along. Connects. It's emotive because it talks about their experience with God and his character, but it's shareable and engaging because it relates to their lived experience and is an easy invitation. So just one example of content that connects. The next type of content is education content. I haven't looked at your social medias, as I don't know what churches everyone is from here today, but I can imagine, and probably am mostly correct from experience, that a lot of the content you're posting at the moment is just informative education content. We have an event on Thursday night, it's at 7 p.m, that kind of information content. Now, there's definitely a place for that, hence the education part of the framework. But it shouldn't be the only thing you post, because actually when we just post education information stuff, what we end up doing is just like pushing out a wall of bland information to people that they start to like tune out of. They're not engaging with your page. And we're not going to really talk too much about how social media works because they're all a bit different. But one little tidbit on Facebook is that your content will get shown to people who engage with your content. It's like this crazy cyclical thing where you want to be sharing stuff they engage with so that they see the bits that they need to know. You can ask us more about that later if you like. So you can use your content to inform and educate your audience about what is coming up, and you should. Just don't make it the only thing you post about. They are looking to you for what to care about. What's coming up, even in the world, what should I be caring about? What should I be engaging with? If you, or someone else in your staff team reads something and thinks, I wish everyone in my church would read this, you could share it and encourage them to read it. So an example of this is actually a bit of a job posting that Basie posted. And I can tell you why this is a good piece of education information content for a few reasons. One, it's really concise and clear what they're saying imply for this, right? They've kind of made it catchy. It says, we're looking for church planning residents at Providence Bayswater. We're inviting men and women at Theological College to apply for our church planning residency. They've got kind of two things about it, why it's a training position, why it's a ministry position. Head to our website, it's call to action, which is just marketing speak for the thing you want people to do from the post. A nice graphic, which makes it look like it's a real fun time to be there. Great education content because it's informing them of something that they need to know, but it's also great on social media because you could easily send this to someone who you think would be good for the job. Whereas if all you ever do is announce it in the service, you miss an opportunity because people aren't mostly, they're not getting on their phones during the service to send it to someone or take a photo of the slide or whatever it might be. But if they're already on social media engaging with people, then they can share it. The other thing it does is it actually tells audiences something about this church. This church values church planting. This church is training and teaching people in church planting. And that's actually something that might appeal to people who are interested in your church. And the last one, illustrate. Word's a little bit more abstract here, but stick with me. So illustrate content is where you want to showcase your community so that your members can engage with you and your potential members get a sneak peek of what it's like to be at your church. They were talking about this in the main session when it came to kind of your live stream, and obviously people had different thoughts on that, and you may have your own particular strategy there or be formulating one after hearing that discussion. But illustrate content is a way that you can give people that glimpse, that vibe, to use that real millennial language, as Liz said, by showing and not telling. So that's why it's illustrate. Show them what your church is like rather than just telling them. So one way we do this with Providence Bayswater is by doing little church member spots, right? Introducing church members. I chose this one because I thought it was real cute. This is Meet Felix. We're super excited. And every month, introduce a church member. Obviously, there's privacy and you get the people's permission and you talk to them. Don't just pick random members and start posting their photos if they're not happy with you doing that. But often people are really happy to be profiled as a member of a church if they're engaged and love being part of God's community there. So this is great because it shows things about the church without just saying, like I could say, chuck up a post and say, at Providence, we have a great kids program. Kids love coming here. Families are happy at our church. We care about, yeah, sure, that's nice. But by showing that here's Felix and here's something he said, Felix shares, I help set up the music equipment with Dad, play for a bit, and then we sing some songs. I go to kids' church and afterwards we all have fun playing together in the playground. And it says, recently, one thing Felix has learned about God is that anyone can pray to him wherever they are. So why not join us this Sunday as we gather across all age groups to praise our great God? Showing, not telling. Oh, sorry, accidentally changed the slide, but perfect timing. So for effective, engaging content, I know it's a bit of a whirlwind of information, so if you have questions or thoughts, please pop them in the chat and we'll hopefully get to them at the end. But for effective, engaging content, think about how can I connect, how can I educate, and how can I illustrate? And just when it comes to your content, also think about what it looks like. So you've just kind of heard about, okay, I know what kinds of content I should be saying, how it looks. You obviously want images to match. Facebook, Instagram, they love images. People don't love just text posts because we're super visual people online. So take regular photos at church. Be conscious of privacy and, think about having a policy and asking for permission and things like that. But take regular photos at church so that you always have content to share. Create some branded social media templates for ease. Really, really passionate about this because it helps you with the next point, sticking to your brand style online and in church. Helps you create a cohesive experience so that when people walk in your doors and visit your Facebook page, they're seeing the same kind of church. They're not thinking, oh, you were a bit different online and not other times, So stick to your brand style. If you don't have one, maybe consider putting one together, just a really simple one. And create branded social media templates so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you do your content, but you just can use your templates, plug in the Bible verse or the quote from the sermon, that kind of thing. And then you'll keep a consistent look so people will recognize you when they're scrolling through the feed. And lastly, you're already thinking about this, I'm sure, after the discussion in the morning session, but where is your live stream? Is it something that you're choosing to leverage on social media by streaming to Facebook? Or is, perhaps like some of the people in this morning session, you don't want to do that. But think about it. If you are putting it on Facebook, then there's an opportunity there in directing people to church and using it, I guess, to give the vibe of your service, the example of your teaching, etc. Don't, I guess, let it just languish. And if you are streaming to Facebook, don't let it be the only thing people see when they land on your page. Give them context and bring that warmth from the service into other bite-sized content. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to make it happen. And I'll hand back over to Liz.
Thanks, Ngaire. So we know why social is important. We know what sort of content is good on social media, but how can you, a busy church staff member who's probably already overloaded, make it happen? So we recognize that in a lot of places there are, small staff teams. You probably don't have a comms person, or maybe even if you do, they're focusing on the newsletter, or maybe they're focusing on getting this live stream happen. So we want to give you a couple of tips if this applies to you so that you can get social media happening in the easiest way possible. So you might have heard the phrase, keep it simple, stupid. I think that's a bit rude. We're going to say keep it simple, saint. That's more biblical as well. So keep it simple, saint. Let's talk about how. So have a calendar. Set up some sort of a social media calendar that creates a rhythm to your content. So starting with these simple, people-focused ideas, and you can build on that over time. So what I'm talking about here is having maybe 3 or 4 different types of posts, and you could use that great work that Ngaire gave you to categorize your posts, or you could go a little bit more specific, like on Mondays we do a Bible verse, on Wednesdays we do a story, on Fridays we do an invitation to the coming Sunday service, things like that. Just pick those ideas and do those same days every week. You'll have a flow of constant content. And it also kind of encourages you to post more regularly than just when there's an event coming up or something to invite people to. So it means that we get that content going out regularly, but by having that set pattern, we also keep it easy. It also means you can work ahead. Facebook and Instagram in particular have a really great native scheduling tool, which means you can schedule content in advance. So you can also reuse and repurpose to make things easy. So Ngaire mentioned that you can duplicate content across from Facebook to Instagram. So that's a great option. You can also think about repurposing in the sense that, you know, if you are the pastor, for example, writing a sermon, can you pull out some quotes from that sermon and turn them into social media posts? Or if you've read a book, can you pull out quotes from that book and pop that on social media? Song lyrics from a song you sang on Sunday is a great option as well. You can batch as well in the way, you know, if you're taking photos at church on a Sunday, take lots of photos and then use them for the whole term. So get a combination of, you know, big group shots and individual shots. Reuse, repurpose, batch. Think about how you can keep it easy for yourself. Now, if you just don't have the time, you need to either outsource, hire, or raise up. So raising up a volunteer can be a really good option for social media. It might actually be something that a younger person in particular is really keen to help out with, like a uni student who's already tech savvy and understands the platforms. You could also consider outsourcing. So this is something that we do. We'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But outsourcing your social media and even your broader communications doesn't necessarily mean that you have to commit to that forever. It might be helpful for you to get some help in setting up that pattern, establishing some branded social media templates, starting to gather some stories and just kind of learning from some pros, and then you can run with it yourself. So that's always an option as well. So let me give you very briefly 5 things I reckon you should do in the next few weeks for your social media. Now, you can take and leave these according to where you're at with what you're currently doing. So firstly, join Facebook and Instagram if you haven't already, but if you're already there, hopefully, make sure you update your Facebook and Instagram profile and your cover picture. So that's the picture up the top on your Facebook profile. Plus your bios and the other details. Maybe they're a bit out of date. Make sure you've got your accurate service times on there. So as I said, turn on the lights, get the music playing. Then take some photos at a Sunday service. You're going to need those up-to-date photos in order to create some good people-focused content. And practice using those to create posts. Then set up a simple content calendar with 3 to 4 set post types that you can cycle through. So don't go crazy and start trying to do every single possible type of content. Just start with 3 or 4 that you reckon you can pull off and just do those each week. Now, Canva is a really great option. So if you haven't heard of Canva, it's an online design software. It's super intuitive and easy to use. And you can have a go at that. Thanks, Josh, who's just commented that you can get Canva for free if you're a nonprofit. So that's very exciting. It's really good. And you can have a play in there if you're interested in trying to make some cool looking graphics. It's lots of fun, so just have a play around. And then have a think about who could be managing social media for your church. Is it a volunteer? Do you need to get some external help? Maybe it's something you want to add to your plate. Maybe not, but have a think about that. On this next slide here, we've just got a few special offers. Ngaire, do you want to very briefly run through those?
Yes, I know we're like right on time, which of course there's so much to say, right? So if you're interested in getting some more help from us, then we have a couple of things. One is that we've put together 20+ ideas of social media posts for churches. And if you send us an email, we just happily send that through to you to get you started with some great ideas for reaching out on social media. You can also see here a couple of other options if you'd like to work with us and you're looking for a little bit more support. We do 1-hour focused consulting calls, and we're offering them to you as well. And they'll come with a 1-page document of recommendations that you can work through, or you can work through with your staff or your volunteers, whoever it might be. Help you get a bit of direction from where you're at. And we're also offering audits, so website or social media audits, which is just a great opportunity to get stock of where you're at and learn how to specifically optimize what you're working on at the moment in terms of social and website. So, snap a photo of it if you're interested. Send us an email if you'd like to hear more about any of these things, get the freebie, or just to talk more about how we can work with you, because we do lots of other things as well. Now we're right on time. So I don't know if we can do questions, Liz Fong. We have to go back. She doesn't know. Okay.
I reckon that let me have a very quick look at the questions. So there are a few I can answer like real quick. Well, how many posts per week? So yeah, good question. I did, like, social media does work on a more is good kind of thing, but actually we think that sweet spot is actually around 3 to 4 posts a week for hitting manageable, but also feeding the algorithm. So 3 to 4 per week, I reckon.
Yeah. I would say though, if that's impossible for you, go for like 2 a week consistently over 4 a week every 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, consistency is definitely key there. Yeah. Tips on the best metrics to track the success of church social media. So Facebook has a really good, again, native, what's it called? An analytics platform. I'd say that what you're wanting to check is engagement and reach. So those are the 2 things that are helpful to measure. So reach is kind of how far your content is going, and then engagement is how many people who are seeing your content are engaging with your content. So those are the 2 metrics. I'm so sorry we've run out of time, everybody. Please do send us an email if you have more questions. We would love to help you out with that. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.